So Fred, I'd like, if I may, to ask you a couple of questions about the trends you're seeing. What kind of trends are you seeing in terms of the regulations in the industry?
Well, I've been in the business for 35 years, and certainly some of the trends that I'm seeing are that there's more of a need for meet or complying to standards that years ago were unheard of. Like, for example, one that comes to mind that would be familiar to most people listening to this would be CE/PED qualifications, something that I didn't even know existed 10 years ago. Today, it's basically mandatory if you're going to sell a valve into Western Europe. So that would be one example of how regulations are becoming more stringent every year.
And if we look at fugitive emissions, what kind of trends are you seeing there?
Again, I would say it's the same thing, that even in third world countries, where you might think that fugitive emissions would be secondary in importance, it's really a primary concern in most of these countries. So like we're seeing things where TA Luft requirements are needed, and again, it's a similar situation that the standards are becoming more tight, and it's requiring valves that are sealing tighter and that have less fugitive emissions associated with them. Definitely a tightening of the standards.
And over the years, we've seen, unfortunately, some well-documented disasters. What impact has that had on the valves selected for isolation duties?
Well, in many applications in the past, a single isolation was allowed. API 6D defines double block and bleed, but it defines it in a way that basically says you have to have sealing from both ends and a mechanism to detect leakage through the center. But what we're seeing a lot of now is that it goes a little bit beyond API 6D. It requires double sealing. In other words, sealing from the upstream path to the downstream path with two seals and a means of detection between seal number 1 and 2. So the double block and bleeds that we're seeing, I'm seeing a lot more applications for double block and bleeds. Right now, we've actually sold a number of valves that were once single block valves, and they've actually replaced the single block valves with the double block and bleed to ensure that you don't have leakage through the valves, which could contribute to a fire. And that, in the cases you referred to, is exactly what happened in the past.
Fred, as always, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome, David.